you at? Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Grief Let's Talk About It podcast. You guys know who it is. It's Tony Lynch. I am the host of this podcast, and today, as always, we got a really awesome guest with you guys. We're going to be talking about Feng Shui, and of course, she has a story that goes along with that. You guys sit back, grab your pads, but before you do that, do me a favor. If it's your first time tuning in, head on over to that YouTube channel. Hit that subscribe button, hit that bell notification so you'll be notified every time that we drop a new episode. And the reason being, we are switching platforms, and we will be using a different platform coming up in the next couple of weeks. So if you don't want to miss an episode, please go over there and do that, right? And plus it helps get the word out there. But also, if you know anyone who can benefit from the conversation that we have, please share it along with them. As always, we're trying to normalize the conversations around grief and be able to provide tools and support for you guys out there. Now, before I bring her up there, I got one more thing to say. You guys already know that this is for educational purposes only. And if you have any questions or comments, put them in the comment section. We'll be sure to answer them as we go. Now, without further ado, I'm going to bring on my guest, Miss Kathy. Miss Katerine, how you doing, friend?
I'm so good, Tony. How are you?
I am doing awesome. It's great to see you.
Likewise.
Yeah. I'm totally looking forward to this conversation. I mean, shoot, the last time I think we could have talked forever, right? You know what I'm saying? But now we have the opportunity to be able to share your story and you know what I'm saying, the work that you do, your Feng Shui out there, committed apartment and house judo with people, helping them live a
Yes.
very balanced life and everything. But now, before we get started, tell people who you are, where you're from, and about the work that you do.
Yes. So my name is Katherine Troyer, but please feel free to call me Kate. I'm a Feng Shui Lifestylist, and I kind of created my own phrase when I came up with the word lifestylist. Um, because I feel like while I'm a Feng Shui practitioner, to me, the value and the awareness of using your home to benefit you is really about creating a lifestyle change, right? And it's
Mhm.
not only about creating a lifestyle change, but it's also about how can you use your space to inspire you and support you to living in your most desired lifestyle, whatever that means for you, right? And so, like, with your podcast being about grief, and that's something that you talk heavily about, I could probably go on and on about how your home can support you, right? In not only moving through that, but giving yourself a space to be able to move through that. Because, like you and I know, moving through grief, guilt, shame, trauma is extremely difficult when you don't feel safe
Yes.
in an environment, right? And while maybe you've moved into an environment that is the safest you've ever been, like there are things that you can do that will help your body and your mind and spirit feel more nurtured, more safe, more stable, more secure. And in my experience with my personal journey and with my story, everything has kind of unfolded for me once I brought myself to a truly safe environment.
Mhm.
So that's really what one of my rabbit hole passions with feng shui is.
I love that. I love that. Now, I want to dive into your journey. I want to,
Yeah.
let the audience know how you got into it. Why does this make sense to you, right? You know what I'm saying? Because as you said, you got your own journey that got you into what you do right now, and you connected the dots,
Yeah, I'd
right?
love to share that. So I definitely never tried to become a Feng Shui practitioner. I wasn't like, oh, I'm so into Feng Shui. That's what I'm going to do with my life. Never in my life did I think this is exactly what I would be doing now, because Feng Shui just found me. And when it did, it felt so aligned with not only where I wanted to go with my life, but where I had been. So when I was introduced more deeply to Feng Shui, it's always a practice that I've been aware of and I've known about. But about 4 years ago, I had this really synchronistic um, turn of events, I guess you will say. At the time, I owned a design consulting and home staging business, and that was going extremely well for me. Actually, I was making the most amount of money I'd ever made in my life, and I was really successful, and everything was good. But in my personal life, I was looking for something deeper,
Mm.
and I just really didn't know that that was also going to bleed into my professional life. So, on a kind of random weekend girls' trip, I had brought this feng shui manual with me, we'll call it, that I had actually purchased years, I mean, probably back in like 2015,
Mm.
and had never read it, had never looked at it. At one point, I found it though in my email and I had it printed and binded because my spirit must have known that it was important for me at some point. And when I went on this trip, I actually found that manual in the closet that I was packing that I got my suitcase out of. And I thought, oh, well, maybe I'll bring this with me, and finally read it after all these years.
Mm-hmm.
And one morning after we did a group meditation, I grabbed this manual to take it out by the pool to read it. And when I opened it to a random page, there was a sticky note in my handwriting that said, teach this. And I was like, well, I don't think I've ever read this, but maybe I read this one page. I was doing like real estate group classes and things like that. So I thought, oh, maybe I found something in there, but I couldn't quite make sense of it other than it was just kind of this synchronistic thing that had happened. And during this trip, I was very open to kind of seeing what my path, like what was supposed to unfold for me next.
Mm-hmm.
And later that day, my friend and I went to a metaphysical store. We're looking at crystals and tarot cards and all that fun stuff. And she comes over to me and she's like, Kate, they have an entire section of books on feng shui. You gotta buy one. Like, this is too weird. You gotta buy a feng shui book. And they were all so different that I really was like, I ended up buying all the books that they had on feng shui. Like, I walked out like with a stack of books because I was like, I don't know, like I don't even know which one to read, right? The first book that I read later that day, I opened it up. It was The Western Guide to Feng Shui by Katherine Collins. And within 2 chapters into this book, I was like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. It was this deeper level and deeper awareness and look at, what I was already doing, design consulting, home staging. I've been in hundreds of people's homes over many years. So there was like this extension of what I was already doing, but then there was also this confirmation for me from when I was a little girl. And when I was little, my environment was very toxic. It was not normal, but I did have control over my bedroom, and that's where I spent a lot of time. It was a place I was extremely proud of, and it was part of what started this internal need and desire to always be curating spaces that made me feel better or safer, or like that I was honestly like proud to show people, because when they walked into our house growing up, it was not a place that I was proud of. And now I can speak about that or see it energetically, but also physically. But it was like when I opened up that door to my bedroom, it was like, but look at this,
Right.
right?
Right.
And it was a space in my home that made me be able to kind of disassociate a bit and feel like I had a normal family or like a normal life when I very much did not. And so it was almost like I just had all of these things just hit me when I'm 2 chapters into this book, and I'm like, "This is it." And, I wanted more from Tara, the woman that wrote this book, so I'm looking on YouTube for her. Like, I'm a very auditory learner, so I'm like, I wanted to listen, and I couldn't find anything, but when I Googled her, I found out that she had her own Feng Shui school and certification program. And knew without, I mean, I knew already that like, okay, I'm kind of like, I make a decision and I'm doing it.
Hmm.
But what kind of put the cherry on top for me was that my friends that I was with, we were talking about taking a trip to Sedona later that year over my birthday. And the Feng Shui certification program was mostly online, but then they had an 8-day stay in Sedona later that year over my birthday. And that was really like all I needed to feel like it was the most aligned thing for me to do. So within a week of that moment being on that trip, I signed up to become certified, and I also decided to completely shift my business. So I sold or got rid of all of my staging inventory, which was a lot. I probably had like 13 to 15 houses worth of inventory. And just kind of decided like, nope, I'm cutting off all ties to this thing that I'm doing right now that's making me money and, keeping me very busy. Because I just became so it I felt like, Tony, that like learning about feng shui gave me language to something that I had known and understood since I was a little girl. And that was so not only comforting for me, but it just was like, I don't know, it was just so profound that it's like, oh my God, like this, I've been basically doing this with no knowledge of it.
Right.
What impact can I make when I like actually know what the heck I'm talking about, right? And I can like piece it together in this really well informed and educated way. And yeah, that's how I came to become a feng shui practitioner, and that was about 4 years ago, and I haven't looked back since.
See, that is fascinating, and you said some things. If you don't mind,
Of
if we can
course.
elaborate on some of those things, because you say even as a child, you decorated your room
Yeah.
to and without even knowing, right? You decorated it, as your space, and I can only ask the question: do you kind of feel that that was like your safe space from everything that was going on outside of your home? And the second part of that question would be, what I'm saying, as a young child, what was the situation that made you feel as if you needed a safe space to, what I'm saying, that you could call
Yeah.
yours? Because I know you
Yeah.
elaborated on some of your family, some of your family stuff like that, and you know, uh, just,
Yeah.
just if
Yeah,
you would like to
definitely.
elaborate.
Yeah, so it definitely, looking back on it now, it was definitely like, I think it was two things. It was one, creating this safe space for myself,
Hmm.
and it was also a space that allowed me to express myself and like my truer self. It's interesting. I'm thinking about this in real time. I actually just got off a call with someone who like an hour ago, who does she's very into like aura colors and all of the associations with color and things like that.
Hmm.
And we were talking about that, and she was saying that like orange and yellow were my soul colors, and she's seen that since we met. And I'm literally thinking about this right now as we're talking about it. There was this one time for one of my birthdays where I got to redo my room for my birthday. Like that was like what I really wanted. And so I picked out all of my paint colors and my bedding and all of that. And I'm thinking about this now. I painted my walls yellow and I got this like yellow and pink and blue. It was mostly yellow though, comforter. And that was kind of like the foundation of my bedroom, right? Was this yellow color. And I just like I'm seeing how profound that is in this moment because it was like one of the things, and I'll get into my upbringing a little bit here in a second. But one of the things that I um, really wasn't maybe allowed to do was be myself. And maybe it's not that I wasn't allowed, but it was deeply suppressed and not supported. And so thinking about that now of how like one of these colors for me is yellow, that's the time that I remember I was so proud of my bedroom then and it felt the most like me.
Mhm.
And so on top of it being like this safe space for me, it was really this place that I felt the only place I felt that I could truly express myself,
Okay.
and not get there was no backlash from it, right? Because I
Yeah.
could shut that door and just be in there and look around my space and feel comfortable. So growing up for me, you know, you and I have talked about this, and sometimes I hate to say it because I feel like narcissism has become such a buzzword in our society. And it's like, oh, basically, you could look at everyone as a narcissist by this
Right.
point
Right.
of how much it's talked about. I don't think everyone truly understands what it's like to really grow up with a parent, and your mother specifically, that like is an extreme narcissist. And that's she's never been diagnosed as anything to my knowledge. um I remember when I got older thinking that maybe it was like sociopathic tendencies. Maybe those are the same things. I don't know. But that's definitely how it started out, for me as a child. And then, I have a whole bunch of things I could get into, um, in my teenage years. And I think even some things that probably happened that I don't have full memories from. But there was a lot of control. There was a lot of deceit, um, between, my mother and father. And I was probably the most emotionally available person in my family, which means I became the parent to both my parents or even the spouse. I took on those roles as well, from a very, very young age. Probably, the earliest I can remember is being about 6, and really like having this adult view and as much of I could and understanding of the world. So, I grew up believing that it wasn't safe to be myself because if I was myself, I was either, manipulated to believe something different. Like if I believed something, I was manipulated to believe that it wasn't true. So it was very hard for me to trust anyone, especially myself, because even things that I knew without a shadow of a doubt to be true, I was told by my mother, my authority figure, the person that I thought would never hurt me or, was like my safe space, that I was wrong. Um, so there was a lot of like manipulation there, but also I feel like, and I don't know if this is quite the word to use, maybe like she groomed me to be like her,
Right.
which was not a good person. She was a very deceitful person. She was not trustworthy. And everything, we've talked about this a little bit, but a true narcissistic personality it looks at the world from how am I getting what I want for me, and
Right.
nothing
Right.
else in the path matters. So I spent a lot of years trying to figure out like who the heck I was, because definitely in my late teens and my early 20s, like I was kind of like that. I was like her in some of those ways, like deceitful and doing things I shouldn't have been doing. And I didn't give a fuck about any of it. I was just like, whatever, I care about me.
Right.
very like in my ego. And so it took me a really long time to figure out like, but then I always had this battle, right? Back and forth. I'm like, but that's not me. Like but then why do I act this way, right? If it's not me. So, um, I've tailed off into, an abyss of things there. So if you want to pull me back in, you can.
No, no, you're
Um,
totally fine. Whatever direction you want to go in, because like I said, we talked about this before, right? And
yeah,
when we talk about the buzz, the buzz around narcissism, you and I both have some lived experience when it comes down to that
yeah,
narcissistic, what I'm saying, abuse. And even now, right? You know what I'm saying? And so it's not misjudged at all. If you know the signs, then you know the signs. Now, there are different forms of narcissism. And I think you hit the one that most people look past the most, the sociopathic narcissist, right? You know what I'm
hmm
saying? Meaning that out in the real world, perfect, perfect, right? You know what I'm saying? But behind the scenes, oh my God, they're deadly,
yeah,
like very deadly.
yeah,
And I think the biggest challenge is, or the biggest problem is, Katie, is that when we are in those throes of it, it becomes something that we're used to, and we think that that's the norm, right? You know what I'm saying? It has to be this way. Now, granted, I didn't grow up with sociopathic, narcissistic parents. I grew up with very hard and strict parents, and someone might say a little bit too heavy-handed, so to speak, right?
yeah.
But no, I was in a relationship. My son's mother was a narcissist. Oh boy, was she a narcissist, right? I didn't know what it was. She taught me what it was. And then once I found out, I was like, oh, yeah, no, I don't want to do that. No, the crazy part about it is that it didn't stop there, right? You know what I'm saying? She wasn't the first one, definitely wasn't the last one. I had to make a decision. It was like, look, I can't keep going through this. This is eventually I'm going to have to duct tape some people, and I don't want to do that. So, I'm gonna have to make some better choices over here, right? Um, but it does. I mean, when we're so used to being beat down, tore up, talked down to, made to feel less than a person,
Yeah.
we will take on those traits and we would look for them in other people. Because the hardest thing, and please let me know what you think about this. The hardest thing for a person who's been so used to that is to think that there's something better out there, right? And so
Yeah.
we tend to go
Mhm.
after those that fit the narrative of what we're already used to, and it takes a long time. Um, and it takes a long time to even understand the damage that has been done to us.
Well, yeah, and I would take that a little bit further and say that for me, it was like I always knew and believed there was better out there,
Mhm.
but I never felt like I deserved it or was worthy of
Right,
it. Those
right.
things can't happen to me. Like even inside, if I know I'm all these amazing things, trying to bring that into my life externally, bring it from internal to external
Mhm.
was so difficult, right? And I
Right.
think that's where especially we get in those loops of choosing partners, friendships, things that mimic those old relationships,
Mhm.
because especially with people on the surface that are like, okay, this seems like a great person, right? And then we get into it and it's like, oh no, I'm just repeating this pattern. And I think sometimes too that when we're not being conscious of it, that really it strengthens that pattern of unworthiness, right? Like, I mean, my mother really, especially once I got into high school, right? Like, I had zero hobbies. I was not interested in anything. Like, I remember going to a college interview and they
Mhm.
were like, oh, so like I went with like a few friends, right? And they were like, oh, what do you do? And they're like, oh, I'm in debate or I'm in this or I do that. And they got to me and they're like, "What do you do?" And this sentence will forever be burned in my mind. I literally looked at the guy and I was like, "I don't really do anything." Like, that's literally what I said to him. And I remember afterwards thinking about that and, like, I played it off, like, I was like, I'm just so cool, I can say stuff like that." But inside, I was like, "Oh my god, I really have, like, I don't do anything, I don't have an identity." Like, my mother, the older I got, the more I noticed, like, especially when I look back on it now, there was so much, like, especially in front of my friends and people I knew, like, making me feel so stupid, literally telling people that, like, "Oh, it's Katie, she's not very smart, and da da
Right,
da da da."
right.
And it's like those little things that, like, and that's why, when you ask, like, what I kind of went through growing up, I'm a very articulate person, and I feel like it's hard to articulate that stuff being raised by someone like that, because so many of the things that happened were like just everyday occurrences, little things here and there, said, done, like saying, "Oh, if you do all of this, you get this." And then getting to that finish line thinking I was like, "Okay, yay, I get to
Yeah.
celebrate or whatever." And they're like, "No, you did this, so you don't get that." Or, like constantly being built up to achieve something and be recognized for it. And
Hmm.
then they even will take that away from you as well. So it's like you kind of like just naturally, especially when this happens to you as a child, you get really used to like almost sitting around and waiting for people to tell you how to act, how to be, what to be interested in, because you don't want to do it wrong. Because when you do it wrong, it just, quote unquote wrong, right? It either makes it worse or you get disappointed in a whole new way that you didn't even know existed. Like
Hmm.
you're kind of raised, at least I was raised like with this fake air of control over my life when really like I felt like I was, like a puppet almost. And it's so hard to describe that because it's not like, oh, there's this one moment, there was this one thing. Like, no, it was literally just the way I was raised. And then luckily, I have I've always been very curious, I've always been very open, and luckily, somehow, some way, I didn't let, that's those situations fully take my light. And little by little, the older I got, I was kind of able to piece back, who I am as a person, like without any of that programming and conditioning that was literally all the complete opposite of what I was, right? So I think too, it's like, once you start to heal from that and then you realize like, "Oh, I don't trust myself. I don't trust even if my intuition is screaming at me, sometimes if I can't find a logical sense to put with it or something, like I still will be like, oh, maybe I'm wrong." You know what I mean? It always goes back to you being the one that's wrong because that's what, narcissism leads you to believe is like you're always the one in the wrong. You're always the one that
Of
caused
course.
something.
Of course.
And it makes it really difficult for you to like move through life. Like I realized recently, this is something I've really just kind of had a deeper awareness about in the last few weeks. With having my own business, there are times where I my my action doesn't match what I want it to match, and I had this whole moment where I realized it was because I was waiting for someone outside of me to tell me what to do, even though I know what to do.
Right, right.
I have it, not only do I know, but like it's scheduled, it's planned out, but like what if I'm supposed to do something else according to something outside? Like it completely puts all of the power of you in the external. And so, you find yourself a lot of times in freeze or, fight or flight because it's like without that external validation, you're not sure how to move in the world,
Right.
right? even though that's not necessarily a good guidance system, it's like that's what your body gets used to, right? And if you move one wrong way, that like could be something totally like just normal. I wish I could think of an example,
No,
but
you're
like
fine. You're
you
good.
could
I want to add to that though when you get
go
done.
ahead,
Go ahead.
please.
Because I a lot of times, right? Um, Instinctively, we do things, right? Because we've been conditioned. And the one thing that I've noticed, what you've been saying, and it's really impressive that you learn some really strong survival instincts, right? You know what I'm saying? And what I mean by that, the narcissist is as cruel and as as dangerous as they can be. They teach us how to survive in a world that's not designed to keep us safe.
Hmm.
And what I mean by that, like you've said it and you keep saying it, and I'm just like, I wonder if she realizes this, and you probably do. But if not, I'm just going to elaborate on it a little bit.
Please.
You learn how to stick with those who can protect you. Although they beat up on you and things like that, you always learn how to be around the bad boy. You learn how to be around those friends who, although talked down and said that, oh, this is Katie, you know, et cetera, et cetera. I can almost guarantee that they would never let anything happen to you because you was Katie. You learn how to
Wow.
protect yourself
Mm.
through survival from that. And it was and I was like, wow, I wonder if she realizes that, right? You know what I'm saying? Because
No, that's a big,
right, I'm listening to
yeah.
it. But if you notice, and I mean, and I could be wrong as well, right? You know what I'm saying? But please correct me if I'm wrong. No matter where you went, if you always had them around, they always looked at the other person. They will talk bad about you, but they wasn't willing to let anyone else talk bad about you. The bad
100%.
boys and things like that, they will always mistreat, but they wouldn't let nobody else mistreat you,
Yep.
right? You know what I'm saying? Because if they did, they'd be like, "Look, I'll beat you up over Katie," right? You know what I'm saying? And Katie was like, "Yeah, you just went on and did what you did. That's it." You learned instinctively how to protect yourself in a world that was very cruel. You know what I'm saying? And I can, and please let me know. Uh, you've always found a way to decorate something that made you feel comfortable.
Hmm.
It was
It's my
always
number one thing. And it's like,
right, right. No
it's
matter the
always been,
situation of where you
yes.
were, right? You know what I'm saying? You so it's instinctively. These are
Oh,
something that's already embedded in you.
yeah.
So that's I mean, again, I could have been wrong. You could have been like, "No, Tony, that wasn't it," you know, and I would have been okay with that as well. You know,
No, I think that's really interesting. And I would say that I have definitely went through those cycles in my life,
mhm,
100%, and been around those types of people, right? That
right. And
were kind of,
although
yeah.
you're thinking to yourself like, you know what I'm saying, you think to yourself like, "Man, I got to get away from these people," right? And honestly, they probably let you go too when it came time. You know what I'm saying,
Oh, yeah.
et
Yeah.
cetera, right? But it was like while you're there, they got you. That was their
Hmm.
form of saying, "Hey, you know what I'm saying? I got you back, no matter what. I
Yeah.
still got you back. Although you're going to go through this right here, you know what I'm saying? We're going to put you through this, but this is us, right? You know what I'm saying? And you are you, right? You know what I'm saying? But we got you. No matter where we go,
Hmm.
we always got you."
Hmm.
And so, you
No,
know, I
that's
mean,
huge.
I mean, and the reason being, Katie, or Kate, that I say that is because I see so many people do that, men and women both. I've done it, right? You know what I'm saying? But normally, I was the one that people came to for safety because I was like, all right, come on, I got you, you know, because I have the narcissistic relationships, the toxic, um, just the toxicity of it until I realized, you know what I'm saying, not everybody was to blame for the failures in them.
Hmm.
Sometimes I was the toxic one.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
I've
saying?
been the
Sometimes I
toxic
was
one
the fucked,
too, for
yeah,
sure.
sometimes I was the
Yeah.
fucked up one in a relationship because in the process of my destruction, I did damage a lot of a lot of individuals along the way. Right. And you know what I'm saying? And I really didn't think about it at all until I found that one person that went, hey, remember all that stuff that you did? I'm karma. Right, you know what I'm saying? And she, boy, was she karma. She came back and whooped the holy crap out of me. I was like, mm, you know, but and I just wanted to put that out there because I find that very fascinating. The more and more I learn about this journey of grief and trauma and the mental health aspects that come along with it, the commonalities that some people really just look past and never really pay attention to. Again, seeing things from a whole 360 point of view and listening to you, I'm seeing the puzzle pieces come together. And it's like, oh, I wonder if she saw that little piece right there. And again, you may have been like, yeah, I saw that. I knew I was doing this, but sometimes people never even know.
Yeah, no, I think that's really interesting because I never thought about it quite from that perspective, right? When it came to the other people I allowed in my life, and I would say especially friendships, right?
Mhm, mhm,
And I'm even thinking about this in real time where friendships that I've had in the past, like it would be like just me and that one friend, right?
right.
And there was definitely that level of like, if shit goes down, like I know this friend like will be good.
Uh huh.
But it was also still like I was still a lot of times like the punching bag, or I couldn't feel like I could be my full expression of myself
Hmm.
with those people without being made fun of or chastised or whatever. And that's an element about the relationships that I've never thought about before. And it's interesting to think too about how I bounced back and forth in my 20s between those types of relationships and actual good relationships.
Uh huh.
But I didn't know, like, but the other ones actually made me feel safer, right?
Yeah.
And so the good relationships were okay, but it was like I couldn't trust my judgment in them or something. Or I would get afraid of those relationships, or I would just bounce back and forth, right? Like my 20s, I was a party girl from the time I was 16 years old and tried my first cigarette up until, my I would even say into my early 30s, or maybe, I don't know, late 20s, 30, 31 or so. And like, but how I bounce back and forth to that, right? Like I would dig into my shit and I would get a little bit more spiritual. I would work a little bit more internally. And then at the time, I didn't realize I was doing this, but it would become too much. And then I would hop over here and be like, let's party, right? It's time to
Right.
do drugs. Like, let's do this, right? And then when I would get burnout on that and be like, oh, my life is, I don't know if I want to keep going on this trajectory, then I'd bounce back into like, okay, let's work on ourselves. And right. And it was
Hmm.
like, it's just interesting to think about that and think about the people that I was allowing in my life during those times, which, and a lot of times, kind of like you were saying, it wasn't even necessarily that they were even bad people. They were very unaware people,
Well,
right?
okay. I would take that. And I will also add. Let's bring back. Let's bring back because a lot of times people are aware, especially if they had been doing it for quite some time, right? So most of the things that people do, I mean, you don't wake up one day and say, I'm gonna be a drug dealer or I'm gonna be a
Yeah.
crackhead, I'm gonna be an alcoholic. You are aware of those things. You are, especially if you're the one doing it. Because there's
Yeah.
some rules that come along with that. Let's not be let's not look past that. There's certain rules that come along with that. The party girl, right? You know what I'm saying? You're aware of your environment. You know that when you go out, you're going to do X, Y, and Z, and probably go and do some other stuff too, right? You know what I'm saying?
For sure.
Okay,
Yeah,
so you are
you're
aware of those
right.
things. The thing is that when you over here, it's like we are creatures of habits, and we are curious of the unknown.
Hmm.
We're curious of the unknown. Creatures of habits, meaning, you know what I'm saying? I know that if all else fails, I have this to fall back on. So it's a crutch. I can walk away, but soon as things started feeling too comfortable, too good over here, I have to go back over here because you know what I'm saying, this is where I'm most comfortable at. I'm most comfortable in the chaos. It's not our fault. Look, it's the way that we were conditioned. The
Yeah.
chaos is became normal, right? Although we wanted something different. It's
Hmm.
no, it's like if I go over here, these people treat me good, but it's not what I'm used to. These people talk to me like I'm a human being, but that's not what I'm used to. So in order for me to get back to a place to where I have to really make a decision, I'm gonna keep going back over here because at least over here, you know what I'm saying, I don't have to deal with the reality of life,
Yeah.
right? I can go out and
Mm.
drink all night. I can go out and you know what I'm saying, be on the back of a motorcycle. I can go out there and do X, Y, and Z, and no one's really gonna care, right? You know what I'm saying? But I can't. You can't bring that lifestyle over here. Over here, you have to change your mindset, the way that you speak, the way that you dress, the way that you walk, and the way that you talk. You
Hmm.
have to really be responsible over here because these people have worked so hard to change their environment to be around successful individuals, right? You know what I'm saying? So,
Yeah.
and again, been there, done it. I'm not, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. No, no, no,
I'm just,
no,
I'm just
no, please.
putting some stuff out there. On the other end, right? It's like the chaos, uh, and then sometimes it takes you to see some things that really put things in a perspective. To go, you know what? I'm gonna have to walk away from this. I'm really gonna have to get outside of myself, get out in front of my head. I'm gonna have to go over here. You know what I'm saying? Because they already know you. And they think to themselves, like, where you going? Every time we turn around, we go camping, we go do all of these different things. We go out and have fun and you take off. Right? You know what I'm saying? Like we want to take you out on the boat. We want to take you skiing. We want to take you on a plane to go to another country. Let's go see something exotic. And these people over here, well, the only thing exotic over here is the girls on the pole.
Mm.
Right? You know what I'm saying? You're used to that because you can talk smack. You can talk
Yep.
smack. You can throw money. You can do all kinds of stuff. Let's throw some stuff on it. Yeah, you know all the little party favors, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Right? And then one day you wake up and you go, "Yep, I'm done." You burnt out. You're tired. You're tired of not knowing what's on the other side, and that
Yeah.
curiosity steps in, and slowly but surely you get away from it. And again, I'm known. I may just be talking out of my ass too. You know what I'm saying?
I
I
don't
may
think
just be.
so.
I mean, but I
No, I don't
mean,
think so. And I think that, no, I think you're right. I think you do get to a point where you're like, I'm tired, right? And some
mhm,
people choose to do something with that, and other people choose to sink deeper into, the thing that they're so desperately like tired of, you
right,
know?
right. Well, you get
And
tired of grieving your own identity. Think about
ooh,
that. Think about that
love
for a
that.
minute, right?
Yeah.
You get tired of grieving your own identity, especially when you don't know who you are.
Oof.
It's a thing that's poking out. You've already been dabbling into this thing called feng shui, but then you're dabbling into the mess that is your life, the chaoticness, right? You know what I'm saying? And you found a way to make sense out of it, to
Yeah.
justify the chaos. And so there's a mix of identity, and you're grieving one because you don't know how to let it go. You've been that way since, I mean, we've all been there, right? You know what
Of
I'm saying? We've been
course.
there since we were kids, right? I have to grieve this identity because, for one, if I don't know who I am, but this is what I want over here, then who the hell am I supposed to become over here? I know who I am over here. I know what I know my role over here.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know my role over here. So if I let this go, that means that's a whole identity I've had my whole entire life that I have to let go in order to open up the doors. So you're gonna grieve your identity. You have to, right? You know what I'm saying?
Ooh,
Uh,
I think I love that you said that, and the way you put it just hit me so powerfully, right? I think that's kind of it's so cool, because I think that's what really like Feng Shui has been an anchor point for me
mm,
for that, right? Do I think that Feng Shui is the thing that how like that did all this for me? Absolutely not, right? Like Feng Shui is a tool, it's a practice. But
mm,
for me personally, in my practice and my understanding and my deep dive into it, it was the portal or the gateway that led me into all of these other things because it was this tool and this practice that allowed me to see myself with more clarity from an outside perspective, right? Because in feng shui, our first thing that we're looking at is the home, it's the external environment.
mm,
But the whole point of a feng shui practice is that you understand there's an awareness that your environment, your home, is a mirror and a reflection of all your internal energy, feelings, and emotions.
mm,
So, especially for someone that has been through a lot of things, who didn't really quite know themselves, who was trying to figure that out, who had a lot of trauma and just things that have happened that I hadn't dealt with fully or even at all. There were things that like came up for me, in the last 5 years that I was like, oh, I didn't even know that that happened until it just like came
right,
back to me.
right.
And I think for someone like that, for me, disassociating was like the thing I was best at since I was a child. So I didn't spend a lot of time in my body. I didn't spend a lot of time, you know, in my feelings and emotions because, like, honestly, like I wasn't allowed to have them. And if I did have them, they were wrong or they weren't right. Like,
Mm-hmm.
there was always something that like told me that what I was feeling, thinking, being wasn't the right thing. Right. And so being able as someone that, disassociating and not being connected at all to my personal body and life experience, it was really helpful for me, the practice of feng shui, because it allowed me to kind of see this mirror, this reflection of what was going on in here in an external environment, which was so much easier for me to connect with than to connect internally.
Right.
Right. And the more I could connect to the external and like have these realizations and awarenesses and aha moments, it forced me, like, not in a forceful way, but like it was just the extension going inward, just it had to happen.
Right. Right.
Right. So it's like, to me, I think one of the reasons I'm so passionate about what I get to do and my take on the practice is, not only has it been such a powerful tool for me, it's also given language to me that I didn't, that I wasn't sure anyone else understood. And it's just been this really beautiful way to like keep in touch and in check with myself.
Right.
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 And also to remind myself to really help me reprogram years of not knowing who the hell I was, or even like what I want, like just literally not being in touch with my identity at all. It allowed me to say, oh, okay, like now I'm going to start to use my home as well as like my vision board, right? To like reaffirm my identity, to help me stay in good habits and practices, to, like support me in 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 these transitions and in these healing moments, and give me this safe space to grieve the identity of someone that like I'm not even in touch with, which is so weird, right? Like,
But no, that's dangerous, right? And what I mean by that, not in a bad way, not in a
right.
bad way, right? But that's like wicked, right? That's like wicked dangerous right there, right? Because of the simple fact of you see your identity, you see it, you know wholeheartedly what you want to do in this world now. You know your path. So I want to go back to what you said and maybe just elaborate on this for a little bit. I do
Yep.
think Feng Shui changed your life. I think it was the thing that you were supposed to do ever since you was a child. I think that was your saving grace. It's something that you've always been able to carry with you your whole entire life. That was the one thing that was always consistent. No matter where you went, no matter the situation that you was in, you was always able to make sense out of where you was and create a space that was absolutely yours instinctively. And that's dangerous. That's dangerous because you knew your gift. Your gift was
Mhm.
always prominent in you. It's look, I don't take nothing away from nobody. When I see a person in that gift, it excites me. You know what I'm saying? Because although I may not say anything, it really excites me. But I refuse to let you not look at what you've done, what you have out of nothing. You may have been deterred, you may have done all of these different things like that, but you stay consistent on that one thing. And you know what I'm saying? I bet you getting the education was very easy for you. You know what I'm saying? Because it really just made sense. That's what I
Oh my
mean,
God,
right?
yeah, I was obsessed. It was literally all I did for like 8 months. Like, I
Right.
was
That's what I
so
mean.
obsessed with it. I was just like, yes,
Yeah.
more,
Once you figured it out,
more.
you was like, oh shoot, come on. And most of it was like, I know this. You know what I'm saying? I already knew this. Oh, I'm gonna add this to it, right? And it all just kind of made sense. You know what I'm saying? So no, no, I refuse to let you look past that and just negate your natural gifts for what you've done. You've actually been able to look at the grief, the trauma, and the things that you've gone through, and you've built yourself safe havens throughout the way. I bet you if we was to go back and talk to those people that you was with back in the day, you know what I'm saying? They will always say they will probably say something similar all the way across the board. Yeah, Katie, she wasn't too bright, but man, you know what I'm saying? You should have saw her room. You should have saw her house. You should have saw her apartment. You know what I'm saying? Like she always had a way of doing things that when you came over, it helped us feel comfortable.
True. So there was this one time, this just reminded me of this. There was this one time my friend and I think we were in our early 20s. Neither one of us wanted to live with our parents. I had just gone through this whole I had moved out, I moved back home, went through this whole like year-long severe depression, and I just was like I got to get away from here. And we were serving at like a five-star restaurant, but it wasn't like we were making crazy money or anything like that in this small town that we grew up in. And his mom found a room for rent for us that was like basically a crack house. I like
Mm.
that's the best way I can describe it. And we chose to live there together, and we were like, okay, we're going to make the best out of this situation. Neither one of us went, like, we both did some college and took certification programs, so we didn't get like the full college experience.
Mhm.
So we were like, this is our dorm life. And you better believe, Tony, that when we moved in there, like like stayed on a futon. He had a twin bed. We had a little fridge and a microwave in there. Like we lived with some crazy old woman who was like literally her and her boyfriend would like get into fist fights, and they were doing all kinds of crazy shit. Like it was an interesting living situation. But let me tell you, our little dorm looked cute as hell. Like it was like I remember he went to work one day and I worked all day to give us this like really cute space with like what we had. And he still like he and I are still friends to this day. And he still will make comments about that. Like, I came home from work that one day and you had just like turned this little crack house room into the cutest little space.
See, and
I
again,
had to. And you're so right, too. Like, no matter what situation I've been in, that's what I've gone back to. And I just want to say thank you for not letting me push past that, because when you said, I believe you said like feng shui was your saving grace, it literally, like, I almost started bawling my eyes out and had chills all over my body, because you're right. Like, that has been my saving grace my entire life, and it's almost like that's just normal to me. Like, it
right,
doesn't always feel special, right? Because it's something that,
because
like,
it's not,
it's my
it's not work to you. It's a
yeah,
part of who you
right.
are. So no, it
Yes.
doesn't feel special. Look, we can go out here all day long, and you know what I'm saying, and we can do exactly what comes naturally to us. And to us, it's just something that we do. But I tell you what, for those out there that see and watch what you do, you keep them in amazement. You keep them in awe. Because if you could take a blank, it's look, it's like an artist with a blank canvas. You give him the right tools, or him or her the right tools, and some time, and just the space to be creative. It's going to paint a beautiful picture. It's going to do what comes naturally to them. And people may compliment them and everything. People may compliment you. Every last one of these individuals out here doing amazing things. Compliment them. And we'll look at that compliment and go, I could have done better. You know what I'm saying? Oh, this wasn't a big thing. No problem. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't really nothing big. I appreciate you. Things like that, right? Because it's just something that we do. But if you look at the people that are doing it, look at their faces.
Mm.
Look at their faces, man. And it's a beautiful thing. It's such a beautiful thing. And more people, I encourage more people to go out there and find the thing that you need to do, and do it as if you know what you're doing. Just let it flow. Don't fight it.
Mm.
Let it
Mm.
go to find that one thing like yourself, Kate. You know what I'm saying? Go through and find the thing that you've been doing your whole entire life, that you've always looked past but always went back to. That's the thing that you're supposed to do. That's the one thing you're supposed to do. Don't ask me how I got into grief. I
What
you
you've been
know,
doing your whole life.
yeah, well, yeah, we ain't gonna talk about that. But Kate, we're gonna go ahead and wrap it up. But we have to do this again. Only reason being people scheduled behind you because they saw the word podcast. They were like, I gotta get in there to be able to do this. I was like, no. So it limits us on, you know what I'm saying? But we have to, if you would like to, I would love to bring you back on and talk more about what you're doing, what you got
Yeah.
coming up and everything else.
I think it would be really interesting, Tony, with through what you do, right? If
Hmm.
we got on and maybe did an episode where you were like, okay, let's say maybe somebody in that you've been working with or whatever, there's some sort of grief that has come up for you a lot, or someone you know, or in your work, and we could maybe talk about those different situations and how you could create spaces in your environment that would maybe help support you in moving through that, or some practices that would help, like moving you. Like, I would love to do, like, have a conversation that was like very collaborative, right? With what sets
Yeah.
you on
Oh,
fire,
you
and
ain't
what,
saying
and
nothing
kind
but a
of like,
word. You haven't said nothing but a word. So, you know what I'm saying? Y'all heard what she said, right? So she's already setting up the next episode. You guys tell us what you think. And we're gonna make it happen. So she's already set it up. But since now that she put me out on Front Street like this and carrying on, I'm gonna say, and you guys already know I'm dropping the magazine this month, and as a matter of fact, in the next couple of days. So I want to invite Miss Kate to come and write an article on how feng shui, you know what I'm saying, can help relieve or help people guide themselves through grief. You know what I'm saying?
I'm pulled out my phone because I'm emailing myself so that tomorrow on my day off, I'm going to get this to you.
Yeah, send me an article. Yeah, because you know what I'm
Okay.
saying, I got a couple more slides to put some great articles in. Since you just gonna put me out on Front Street, I'm getting you back. You know what I'm saying? Oh yeah, no. Just see, you think of plan. You think if I was there right now, we would have I would have to throw punch you. Like, oh yeah, how you just gonna do that, Kate? Huh? Just gonna put me out there like that. But now that we on virtual, I'm just gonna give you a virtual throw punch, okay? You know what I'm
I
saying?
love it.
Calling me all out and carrying on, you know what I'm saying? No, you know, I love the fact because every time that we talk, you know what I'm saying, since the first time that we talked, we just clicked and we just vibe. And I love that. I knew that this was going to go this way, and I wish that this individual hadn't scheduled right behind you because we could have gone, you know what I'm saying, for
I
a
know
lot
we could have
longer
gone for a
and
while.
everything. But that's why I said let's go ahead and we're gonna go round two, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
And we're going
love
to
it.
talk about that because I would love to get your perspective on that, and things like that. But also, you know, like I said, the magazine, you know what I'm saying? I would love for you to write an article for it. You know what I'm saying? I love your vibe. I love, you know what I'm saying? I love just the way that you can articulate those things. And then when it comes down to feng shui, I know nothing about that. So I know to stay in my own lane. Okay.
No, you're going to learn, Tony.
Oh no, she did. See, look, y'all heard this. She gonna get me, y'all. She gonna get me. That's okay though. You know what I'm saying? I'm always down to learn something. You know what I'm saying? Because I think that's the whole purpose of us having these conversations and things like that. We dive deeper into our stories in order to learn more about more about us, right? As human beings, as people, um, and the more and we dive deeper into the roles that we play in this world. You know what I'm saying? Everything else kind of works itself out. The people that come in, the roles that we play in their lives, etc. Right? You know what I'm saying? It's all circumstantial, but it all has a place, a time and a place. You know what I'm saying? We sometimes just find ourselves in the time and the place to be there, and things like that. So before I let you go, Kate, where can people find you?
So everybody can find me if you go to homesliceliving.com. That's my company and website. So you can find all kinds of resources, ways to get in touch with me there. On social media, my handle is fengshui.kate. And that I'm most active probably on TikTok, is where I'm most active. And then probably second, Instagram, but you can find everything. I'm on everything else too, but that's probably where you'll find me the most. And you can find all that on my website as well.
Awesome, awesome. You guys go check her out. If you have any questions, just tell her, Tony, you saw the podcast. Go ask questions,
She is.
learn some things. Guys, she's fun. She's a lot of fun. She's how you guys laughing and everything else, right? So yeah, you guys go check her out. Now before we close this out, if you could leave the audience with something, what would you leave them with?
I would leave them with the most powerful thing that you can do in life is to get in touch with your own power.
Mm,
Because what I have learned in my life is that was the connector to everything that I've ever wanted,
mm-hmm,
to figuring out who I was, to creating my dream business and career, to healing, to moving through anything, to learning how to trust myself, to getting more in touch with my intuition. Like,
mm-hmm,
it all comes from realizing that the only control that we have is within ourselves. And again, I believe that comes from recognizing our own power.
yeah,
And in a million different ways, we're taught throughout our lives that we're powerless, or that anything we want is unattached or external from us. And the only way to get what we want is to go externally. And I think that that's the biggest lie we've ever been told. Everything comes from within here.
Mm,
And if you can recognize yourself as the powerful, amazing being that you are, you can create any type of life that you want.
I love that. I definitely love that. Um, and with that being said, I want everybody to give my guests a huge hand. Thank you for being on the show, Kate.
Thank
You
you
know what I'm
so
saying? We
much,
got part two
Tony.
coming up, so you guys
Yeah.
already heard it from her, and you guys already know what to expect. This is what we're going to be doing. This time, I'm just going to block out like 2 hours, 3 hours, just so we can have time to just, you know what I'm saying, just hang out and just talk. And dive deeper into some more of these conversations and things like that. Love it, love it, love it. And with that being said, for everyone who's been tuning in on all the different platforms, you know what I'm saying, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, Instagram, Rumble, all of you guys, thank you guys for tuning in. And I see you guys up there, you know what I'm saying. Thank you. Ask questions, you know what I'm saying? Ask questions, anything. We this is what we're here for. And with that being said, you guys already know this is going to conclude this episode of the Grief Let's Talk About It podcast. I am Tony Lynch. I am your host. Now, before I let you go, since we will be switching platforms here real soon, we're going to go to a more bigger platform, a lot more streaming avenues, et cetera, so you guys will be able to enjoy us on some of your favorite TV channels, et cetera. And so, guys, head over to their YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell notification so you'll be notified every time that we drop a new episode. And if you're just now tuning in, you didn't catch the full episode with Kate, please go to the YouTube channel and check out a full episode. You guys know, I already know, you're not going to be disappointed. You know what I'm saying? Get your pens and pads ready because there's a lot of jewels that was being dropped inside of there. And maybe, you know what I'm saying, maybe these stories can help you out as well. I know it does me. And so, guys, have a great day. Remember, make memories with the people that you're with, and always leave people better than what you found them. And with that being said, we're going to close out this episode. We'll see you guys in the next one. Have a great day.
Peace.